Dear friends, I am now going to discuss on how to solve the problems pertaining to labor law 1 as such. Okay, labor law 1, you have got that internal choice question papers. If you refer to December 2000 June July 2019, I think in the 2019 you will not find. If you refer to 2019 December question paper, you will find the question number 3B, where a question is like this: how to solve. I will tell you whether it is in this law or that law, whether it is banking law, whether it is administrative law, whether it is constitutional law, any problem comes, what you are expected to do, each problem will have 6 marks. What is expected of from you to answer any problem? First of all, understand the problem. Okay, it may be sometimes twisted also. Understand the problem, understood. Then think about which particular provision of law, which particular provision of law in that subject is appropriate. There may be 1 or 2 provisions maybe sound similar like, but you have to understand the very problem clearly and apply the relevant provision. Apply the relevant provision. Probably you will have to quote. If you want to score more, you will have to quote the relevant provision of law also. And by applying that provision of law here, what will be your judgment? Sometimes the case, the problem given may be based on a decided case. So if you know the decided case, and decided case comes under which particular head and under which particular provision, please quote them. So as far as to score 5 to 6 out of 6, I am telling you. So to solve, let me read some of those problems and instruct you as to how to score marks by writing what all contents. So scoring of marks depends upon the appropriate contents that you are inserting in, and they are, I will tell you now. Mohan and Company Limited directed its workmen not to report work for 15 days due to water scarcity in the industry. Mohan and Company Limited directed its workmen not to report for work for 15 days due to water scarcity in the industry. The workmen claimed layoff compensation. Mohan and Company Limited refused to pay. Decide whether it is whether it can be considered to be a layoff. Therefore, you should know they claimed layoff compensation. Mohan and Company refused to pay. Now, let us not think beyond the layoff, but let us now define layoff. What is that layoff? Layoff means it's a temporary inability of the employer to keep the establishment fully working, in which case he may refuse to give work to any number of the workmen whose name is borne in the industrial muster roll of the industrial establishment, and it must be, it's an inability on the part of the employer to give work to any number of the workmen whose name is borne in the muster roll of the industrial establishment, and such inability must happen on account of lack of raw materials, coal, power, accumulation of stocks, or lack of marketability, breakdown of machinery, or natural calamity, or any other reasons connected with more than any of the above rather. So this is a natural calamity. Water scarcity. Since there is no water supply at all, due to water scarcity, he has asked you to not to report for work for 15 days. Therefore, you are laid off from the services. Work cannot be given with only for 15 days, I said. Otherwise, you would have gone for retrenchment as such. So when it is a natural reason, okay, this is beyond the employer, a situation happening beyond the control of the employer, it comes in natural calamity. You understand? Water scarcity is a big natural calamity reason like. Therefore, workmen claimed layoff compensation. Whether Mohan and Company Limited liable to pay. Mohan and Company Limited liable to pay. And you must also know, see, this is not punishing the employer, Mohan and Company. See, if it cannot be termed as a layoff, then employer may have to go for termination, retrenchment. But there is no cause of concern, there is no reason of loss like for paying retrenchment compensation. So that also will not arise. So to save you and employer from the losses, so share it 50-50. Layoff compensation is 50% of the basic wages plus DA. Correct? And at least 50% you will earn without work, 50% you will save at least. Otherwise 100% would have been the loss. If your workers are to be paid for no work, 100% it will be a huge loss. So at least this loss percentage, 100% is borne by both equally. 50% you will bear, 50% I will bear. You have saved 50, I have saved 50. Correct? Or in a way, if you think employer has sustained this loss, you have also sustained loss. In a way. Okay? But let us not think in that negative way. Let us think something plus out of negatives. That means at least for no work, you are ready to work is different issue. For no work, you could earn little more, 50 also. At least employer, for this kind of situation, at least you could save 50. So employer, workmen claimed layoff compensation. Employer, therefore, by applying the provision of section 2 clause K, that is layoff, and section 25C, workman is entitled to claim layoff compensation. Okay, a layoff can happen in a year due to any of those reasons for 45 days. There is no question of a 46th day. There is no question of a statutory requirement of 46th day. In case if it is to be 46th, 47th and all, then I will tell you that it is a continuous case of a continuous loss. Therefore, you should go for retrenchment. I can. But if you want to still sustain employees, then you can go for layoff. If the employer doesn't pay compensation, you cannot come to the court, Mr. Employee, because that's the greatness of the employer to have kept you in the establishment, right? Work cannot be given with 45 days of statutory limit also got over in the calendar year. So where is the question of 46th day? There is no question of 46th day layoff and paying compensation. So in this case, section 25C read with section 2 K to be applied, and it is a case of natural calamity. Therefore, workmen, you can claim compensation provided you should be reporting to the employment every day at the appointed hour. Understand? You should be reporting. If the employer has asked you that you don't need to come, then you still ignore. You are entitled to layoff compensation as such. Okay? Or next one, the certifying officer certified. So therefore, the answer is very clear, right? Next, the certifying officer certified and sent to the employer the standing orders for his industry without sending the copy of the certified standing order to the concerned trade union. Understand? Under the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act 1946, this case comes. The certifying officer to whom the draft of the standing orders made by the employer referring to the matters contained in the schedule to the Standing Order Act, these draft standing orders have been prepared by the employer and submitted for certification and approval for its enforcement in the for its application in the factory or industry, right? Employer has done it, and when employer is required to submit 5 copies of the draft standing orders, he submitted, but then the certifying officer, upon the submission examining the same, he has certified and sent to the employer the standing orders that is to be applicable to his industry, but without sending a copy of the same to the concerned trade union. It says, very important, the certifying officer certified and sent the employer the standing orders to the industry without sending a copy of the same to the concerned trade union. The trade union challenges the standing order as invalid and because they were not consulted. Decide. The argument of the the trade union is correct. Why it is correct? Under section 5, as for the section 4 and 5, as far as the Industrial Employment Standing Order is concerned, when the employer submit the draft standing orders and in 5 copies, soon the certifying officer, upon the receipt of the same, he should send a copy to the trade union and give them 15 days of time. In case if there is any objection, send it to the certifying officer, which has not been done. Therefore, certifying officer's certification can be challenged. In this case, there are one more issue, that certifying officer certified, but before certification he was required to send a copy to the trade union. But what is the case here? That is not the case. Of course, I am telling you, the certifying officer certified and sent the certified standing order to the employer without sending a copy of the certified, that's what it indicates, without sending the copy of the concerned to the trade union. I will tell you, before certification only you were required to consult. Where is the question of consulting after the certification? Question of consulting the trade union after certification will not arise that way. So the certifying officer certified and sent the employer the standing orders for his industry without sending a copy of the standing orders to the concerned trade union. The trade union challenges the standing orders as invalid. Yes, I have got two opinions. Please write both because this is ambiguous. As we see the question paper, and if we imply certain things by seeing this, according to me, by applying the requisite provision, employee or trade union cannot succeed because trade union should have been consulted. I think they have been consulted. When the employer has submitted for certification in 5 copies, one of the copy was given to the trade union. To file objection, they are given 15 days time. Then, after only Mr. certifying officer certifies, the certified copy need not be given to the trade union as such, unless they apply for. But certified copy to be given to whom? To the employer. But if the certification done without giving a copy to the trade union for offering their objection and all, then that would have been challenged. But here, what case is certified and then the copy sent to the employer, but they have not at all, without sending the copy to the trade union. Trade union need not be supplied with any copy after certification, remember. Therefore, if a trade union challenged this, then a standing order cannot be valid because I think trade union have been consulted earlier to certification. They are required to be consulted earlier to certification. See, what I am telling you is that they have been consulted is my opinion, inference, because the certifying officer certified here and sent the copy of the certified standing order to the employer. Employer only is required, and he doesn't require to send the certified copy of the standing order to the trade union as such. A trade union is to be served the copy before the certification. Understand? Okay. Anyhow, trade union has challenged it. I will tell you, trade union can challenge it as invalid. Why? Because they submitted, this is my another opinion, they submitted their objections, but those objections have not been incorporated. Okay? But here it speaks what? Without sending a copy of the copy to the concerned trade union. This is not expected of. Not that after certification you cannot challenge. You can challenge, your employer can challenge. That is there before the appellate authority. But you said that after the certification copy not been served, copy has not been given to the concerned trade union. No need of it. In this regard, trade union cannot succeed if the copy has not been served and all, if they contend. But you can challenge the validity of the standing order, that is possible. But you cannot challenge Mr. Trade Union saying that, you just see actually the procedure for certification of standing order as contained in section 5, if you go and see, you will find when receiving the 5 copies of the draft standing order from the employer for certification, then a copy of the same will have to be sent to the dispatch to the trade union or workmen for their consideration. If you have an objection, submit within 15 days. That is what the requirement. But what is the case here? After this requirement, then, the case here reads only after the requirement that all these procedures followed, employer certified the standing order, sent to the employer the standing orders for his industry without sending a copy to the trade union. After certification, copy not required. Therefore, the trade union, though challenged, their challenge cannot be upheld as valid. Okay, but this is one answer. But if you go by that inference, then trade union can succeed because it is one of the ground that when the draft standing orders is received by the employer, by the certifying officer, draft standing order received by the certifying officer for certification. Soon it is received, a copy need to be sent to the trade union also. The trade union, in case if they have any objections or protest, they may express them in writing and submit the same to the certifying officer within 15 days. When the copy itself not been served on the trade union for any objections, if any, then the certification of the certifying authority is invalid. Therefore, it can be challenged. This is what the other opinion I see. Okay, right. Which one you will read, you can write, but write it with reasoning. Then Raja was working as an electrician in David and Company Limited. In the same question paper, question number 4b. Raja was working as an electrician in David and Company. David and Company Limited is a subscriber to ESI Corporation, right? Therefore, ESI Act is applicable there. And as I said, what is the contribution David and Company is giving? The employer is giving the 3.25, and to his employer is deducting from the employee's wages 0.75. Total 4% is 4% of the each employee's basic. Each employee's wages, 4% of it is 0.75 is deducted from the employee's wages, 21,000. Okay, maximum 21,000 gross wages to those employees ESI is applicable. And employer also will have to bear some charges, that is 3.25% of your wages in respect of each and every employee. Employer has to contribute, and employee is contributing only 0.75. Total 4% in respect of each employee. It will be going there to the ESI. Therefore it is a subscriber to ESI Corporation, David and Company. Raja comes into contact with a live wire and dies. His widow Rani claims compensation under the ESI Compensation Act. Under the ESI Act. What is that? His widow Rani claims compensation under the Employees Compensation Act 1923. David and Company refuses to pay. What is the remedy available to Rani? Rani will either file a case, file the claim before Employees Compensation Commissioner under the Employees Compensation Act. Since she claims compensation under the Employees Compensation Act 1923, then she will have to file a claim. Rani will have to file a claim to claim compensation for the death of her husband Raja. In respect to the death of her husband Raja, she will have to file the claim within 2 years from the date of cause of action, from the date of death. And the compensation applicable, this is not mentioned here. At what particular, when Raja was born, correct? When Raja was born, the usual formula that we adopt, when Raja was born, relevant. When Raja died, in which year? So what is the age? Raja's age. Say for example, let us now imagine one fiction I will create. Raja was born in the year 1970 and died in the year 2018. That means at the age of 48. What is the relevant factor? Relevant factor is not decided by us. Relevant factor is decided by law. So Raja was 48 year age when he died as a consequence of an accident happening in the course of employment. Okay. At 48 year age, at the younger age, normally the relevant factor is high. As and when you grow, at 48, I think it may be around 170, 168, something like that. Let me imagine. Imagine only. I am not that exactly correct. Maybe. It is fixed by law. Okay, the relevant factor. So relevant factor, let us imagine that it is 168. What was the wage? That also not contained. So the formula that the rule says, in case of death of the workman, you understand? In case of the death of the workman, the liability of the employer to pay compensation in the case of death is 50% of the wages multiplied by relevant factor or 120,000, whichever is more. Understand? In case of disablement, what is the disablement? 60% of the wages multiplied by relevant factor or 1,40,000, whichever is more. But let us not take that. Let us take the death. In case of death, 50% of the wages multiplied by relevant factor. What is the wages? Raja at the time of death, his wage was 36,000. So what is the 50% of the wage? 18,000. You understand? 18,000. Let us say 18,000. 18,000 multiplied by relevant factor. What is that relevant factor? It is 168. What it comes? 18,000 into 168 or 1,20,000, whichever is more. But here, at what particular age he born, at what particular age he dies, year, and what was his wage and all not given. So the question given is, his widow Rani claimed compensation under the Employees Compensation Act 1923. Whether she would be entitled to claim compensation from David and Company, though David and Company refused to pay. Court held, the commissioner held, the claim is filed. Advice is that Rani will have to file a claim before the commissioner under the Employee Compensation Act. You understand? Rani will have to file a claim before the commissioner under the Employee Compensation Act 1923. And she will have to file the claim within 2 years to claim the compensation. And the formula to be applied to pay the compensation is 50% of the wages multiplied by relevant factor or 1,20,000, whichever is more. Therefore, Rani would be entitled to claim compensation. Understand? From David and Company. The refusal on the part of the David and Company is not valid. Okay? And there is one more case. Nitesh and Company Limited are manufacturing salt from seawater on the coast of Ratnagiri in Maharashtra. Nitesh and Company drawing salt from the seawater on the coast of, they are manufacturing salt from seawater on the coast of Ratnagiri in Maharashtra, right? They have employed 30 workers to collect the salt, pack it, load it to the trucks, okay? They have employed 30 workers to collect the salt, pack it and load it to trucks. The inspector of the factories prosecutes the director. The inspector of the factories prosecutes the director for not maintaining a register of workers as required under the Factories Act 1948. Nitesh and Company contend that they are not factory as defined under the Factories Act 1948. Decide. See, section 2 clause N defines factory within the meaning of Factories Act 1948. What is factory? Factory means any premises including precincts thereof, whereon any manufacturing activity is carried on. Any manufacturing activity is carried on with the help of, whereon 10 or more persons are employed in any manufacturing activity carried on with the aid of the power. So, that is one. Second one, it means, what is that second one? The second one is this. A factory means any premise including the precinct thereof, whereon 20 or more persons are working in any manufacturing activity without the aid of the power. So it is very clear that if with the aid of the power 10 is enough, without the aid of the power 20 or more should be employed. If 10 or more with the aid of the power in any premise where manufacturing activity carried on with those 10 or more, it is industry. It is factory according to 2N of a Factories Act, where in case if 20 or more persons are employed in any activity, in any manufacturing process, without the aid of the power, then that premise or precinct is also called a factory. Therefore, here 30 workers are employed. Therefore, inspector prosecuted the employer for not maintaining the register of workers under the Factories Act for various reasons. Maybe health provisions, safety provisions, welfare provisions, working hours, leave, so many register employment of young persons. In all those, starting from section 11 till ending at 84, the employer is expected to maintain the register for each and everything. And here is a case where employer did not maintain the register as required under the Factories Act regarding how many number of employees are employed therein. For failure to maintain the register, while on inspection employer found the failure on the part of the employer is prosecuted, and his prosecution is just and correct as per the Factories Act provisions. Right? It is a duty on the part of the occupier, if not occupier, employer as such, ultimate owner, to maintain the same. Having not maintained it, the liability, he cannot escape from the liability under the Factories Act. He will be liable to one more thing is that it is a factory. Employer's contention that it is not a factory is not acceptable, because definition of factory as given in the Factories Act is more is more than enough for this, because here 30% are working. Whether power is used or not power is irrelevant. Where 20 or more persons are working in any manufacturing activity which are carried on without the aid of the power, it is factory. So therefore this premise where the salt is manufactured, 30 or more persons are working, it is a factory. Therefore contention of the employer cannot be, Nitesh and company cannot be accepted, and therefore Mr. Employer is liable, and it is a factory under the Factories Act as such. Okay. So what I mean to say that while answering case study, go by, after reading and understanding the case, please try to understand what particular principle, what particular provision of law that is applicable, and you should also know what is the provision of law and can it be applied. As I said, there is a case, standing order is concerned. I said the copy to be served after receiving the draft standing orders, the certifying officer should immediately forward a copy to the trade union for their verification and objection if any. But your problem has not clearly stated. After certification, a copy was served to the employer for application, but without serving the copy to the trade union. According to me and according to the provision, after certification, copy need not be submitted to the trade union. Before certification, copy should be served to the trade union. So there is an ambiguity. So let us resolve the ambiguity by saying that the trade union, we will write the provision. The trade union, after the employer is required to submit the draft standing orders in 5 copies, and after receiving the same for certification, the certifying authority is expected to send the copy to trade union. The trade union is given 15 days to file any objection if any. If this copy is not given, then trade union can challenge the certification. Even if the copy is given and trade union submits the objection, the certifying authority proceeded to register, you can challenge the certification of you can challenge the certifying officer's action on the basis that their objections have not been incorporated. Write the provision like this. So you will find all answers for the problem as such. Okay. So please, while reading any problem for that matter in any subject, you should know the problem first of all, and that problem is, what is the problem in the problem? Correct? You know the legal provision of the subject. Correct? Then how it could be, which particular appropriate provision could be related here to this problem, and what is that solution? By applying that law to this problem, appropriate law to this problem, then you will arrive at, because that law is meant for something. And when that law, you know that provision, it is meant for something, then you will know by applying what conclusion to draw. Right? Proceed like that. Quote the appropriate legal provision. Quote it, not only section quoting but also the provision quoting, and apply them. By applying what conclusion you will draw as per the provision, you explain that and write your verdict. Because as I said, sometimes the cases are given on the basis of a decided case of the Supreme Court. Right? Thank you very much.